Alright, so we've got Albert and Meena again. Today talking about mass surveillance. G'day firstly.
How are you?
Yeah, good. What does mass surveillance look like? CCTV cameras everywhere? What does it look like when somebody sort of says mass surveillance?
Well, it can take a lot of forms, I guess, so CCTV or data stored on servers.
Mm-hmm.
You've got things like, it depends. You can have a domestic perspective of it or international. You can look at things like boundless informant, which is what the NSA uses. And there was this great image, it was sort of colour-coded map of the world that had how intense boundless informant activity was. And during 2010 Arab Spring, Egypt was red hot. So,
what is a boundless informant?
it's a great question. Yeah.
You don't know? I think, are you talking about the
NSA.
Echelon program? So when it comes to the NSA as part of mass surveillance, what I understand is that they basically had multiple programs that were basically sucking up the entire internet and basically all electronic telecommunications data, banking records, anything that was a 0 and a 1.
Yeah.
And what they were doing was they were collating it, and they were collating it with computers, big, strong computers that could basically crunch all that information together, create links between you and me. So maybe a bank account transfer, a telephone call, a Facebook post, and then just the idea was to sit and have a big database, have a big blob of information that you could access whenever you needed it, because the idea was always, and this is going back to the 80s, there are whistleblowers who talked of Project Echelon in the NSA back in the 80s, years and years, decades and decades ago.
Yeah.
And the idea is that it is very useful. If I now realise that George is an important person, to be able to go back 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, and not need to start now, because with policing that's always the problem. It's that, yes, I know now that you're a drug dealer, but it's hard to know what you did 5 years ago, 10 years ago. But if I, for example, had a beautiful pot of information, I had every phone call you ever made recorded, and all your internet searches recorded, all your banking records recorded, then how easy would it be to build a criminal charge against you, an intelligence profile? If I now, when George leaves the country, I realise, oh my God, he's an Egyptian spy. We haven't been able to cover him, but now that we've got everything. So mass surveillance looks like all your data, all your information being held in any way, shape or form. It can be in CCTV, but it can be your bank records, the actual content of your telephone, metadata, your Facebook profile, anything, any electronic footprint or physical footprint you leave, and we leave.
That scares me to death, right?
The problem is, George, we've already got it. I think what you've got to realise is that the surveillance that we already have is already at such a level that if you actually truly understood it, you'd probably be scared, but the reality is it's already there. And what's happening is that there are just more formal methods of occurring. So they're just trying to formalise what's already there. So one thing is, for example, Five Eyes. So if people don't know, Five Eyes is a very old agreement. It's an intelligence agreement between 5 major Western countries. So it's the UK, the US, Canada, Australia, New Zealand. And those 5 countries agree to share certain intelligence with each other, military intelligence, political intelligence. So who's a spy? Who's not a spy? What do you think the leader of this country is doing? Oh, I heard some people from our country might be going to attack your country. The idea was to do it at a military level, to deal with espionage, to deal with the Cold War. All right? But ever since the Cold War, those programs have stayed. So the programs that were perhaps very useful when dealing with the Soviet Union, and that sort of, proxy guys and trying to fight each other, is now stayed. So what will happen is you might get Australians saying to the Americans, do you have an intel on our citizens? Oh yeah, actually we do, because he has a Gmail server and we've got all that soaked up. So yeah, here it is.
But why did they go to the other countries? They did it because America would spy, for example, America would spy on Australians and Australians would spy on Americans, and they wanted to exchange because they had to get around the laws against spying on your own citizens. Wow. So that's what Snowden released. That's the really disgusting part about it, I suppose.
So to spy on an Australian citizen, you could do it if you're in America?
Correct. Look, we already have ASIO who are our spies, so they can spy on us, but it's the level of spying. you know, you have to, you know, as you have to build like a profile on you, they have to say there's something towards George,
Yeah.
rather than I just want to get everything on George just for the hell.
See, this is the thing, right? Like I can say that this terrifies me, and I will be labelled a doomsday, right? If you got nothing to hide, what are you worried about, right?
I always like that. I always love that.
But I mean, I got nothing to hide, and I'm scared to death.
But what is that? You know, that argument is, for me, the most ridiculous argument that I've ever heard. Because no one actually lives their life with the idea, I've got nothing to hide, so I don't care who sees it. Because, for example, no one sits there and mounts a camera in their bedroom and says, look, I'm going to just stream this to the world. Since I've got nothing to hide.
Don't close the doors, don't
close the
lights.
doors, don't close the lights. What, cover my PIN? I've got nothing to hide. There's nothing strange in my bank account. Because there's just an idea of privacy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? When I'm in my bedroom, you know, watching TV with a, you know, jar of Nutella on my stomach, and I'm eating like a pig, I don't want everyone to see it.
No.
I want to be private.
And if I've got a secret obsession with the Kardashians, I don't.
That's you, George.
Yeah, like,
That's
yeah,
you.
exactly. Like
Yeah.
it's I don't want people to know this
Yeah.
sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And it's my right. It's not illegal. Like it's my right to have that as secret. I don't need people to know my viewing.
Absolutely.
But I think it gets even worse than that. Is what can people do with this data? So if you go, say, to Zbigniew Brzezinski's book Between Two Ages, and this was written in 1970, so what's that, 44 years ago, and he writes about how they could use mass surveillance so that they can have a social barometer, so they can understand the political sentiment of the populace.
Yeah.
And the whole book Between Two Ages is Between Two Ages, America's role in the technocratic era. Technocracy just means a scientific and technological elite, and it's just basically economic management. So they can corner economic markets with all this information that they have.
Absolutely. If they know what I'm watching, they know what they're selling me.
That's
and
right.
And they know how to sell it to me.
Exactly.
Very scary stuff.
And that's what
It is.
Facebook started doing with audio tags. They said, this came out in Zero Hedge a couple of months ago, I think, where they said, we're going to be listening to the surrounding area around you with microphones switched on so that we can promote certain content to you, certain television shows, certain music content.
And some people are okay with it. That's what's the problem. We have a society of enablers.
But do I have to accept that, or is that something that's already happened and I have to
If you want to use
denounce
Facebook.
it?
If you want to use Facebook, and see, the problem is that, you know, it's funny, like you know, you hear of CIA agents basically saying Facebook is the CIA's dream. If the
Absolutely.
CIA wanted to create a database profile on just, you know, a billion people, they couldn't have done what Facebook does.
Yeah.
Because people divulge so much private information.
Absolutely.
This is easy stuff to get. Like, I can get your name and date of birth. That's easy. You know, I can get your phone number. But what's your favourite restaurant?
Yeah,
Who's
yeah.
your girlfriend?
Yeah.
People are surprised. It
What are
actually
your
takes a lot to figure out who's
What are your
girlfriend.
political interests? What are your social interests?
Exactly.
What are the things that you're sort of doing?
How do you actually view this particular issue? Like,
Yeah.
here's an issue about, you know, a pedophile. What's your thoughts about that?
Yeah.
You know, the Prime Minister's going to put new laws about mass surveillance. What are your thoughts
And
about
that's
that?
exactly right. It's all about what you feel about things.
Yeah.
And your
You know?
political sentiment.
And Facebook, it was interesting you're talking about Facebook. Just, it's not necessarily mass surveillance, but it shows you the power of not only the information we give out, but being connected to so much information and how much it can influence us. So Facebook did an experiment during, I think, you know, midterm elections or US elections back, you know, years ago, and they found they were actually able to increase the number of people who got out to vote by suggesting more political posts. So you know how Facebook can suggest posts? They can actually influence you, which is a very old, it's as old as advertisement. So
Yeah,
that's actually
yeah.
not a new idea.
No, but
But it's in the political
But
spectrum.
it's in the political spectrum. Rather than trying to sell you Coke, that we all sort of get it. Like, I get it. There's a chick with, you know,
Yeah.
double D breasts and she's trying to sell me Coke. I get that. That's a trick.
yeah.
You know, beautiful woman, you're trying to sell me something
But
I
a
don't
suggested
need.
post on Facebook.
But
yeah,
essentially,
yeah,
it just
yeah.
seems so innocuous. Like, oh, wow, you know, the Prime Minister's doing that. Oh, that's interesting. Maybe I'll go vote.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they can imagine, you know, it'd be a fascinating experiment. I mean, it won't happen, but it'd be a fascinating experiment to be able to go around people and say, for example, bombard them with food ads. And then, you know, be able to come back and say, oh my God, you know, people will be posting, I'm putting on so much weight, or bombard them with gym ads and healthy eating. Or bombard them with left-wing ads about, you know, oh, the environment's being destroyed, we need to fix that.
But you know what? A lot of people are using like Facebook for their information. Like a lot of, so it makes a lot of sense if they're being bombarded with a particular type of information. They will be.
But if you notice with Facebook, like with the internet, people complain, I just don't know what to do with it. So you know, when like I look at the internet, I go, what a lovely tool, an amazing tool. Oh my god. People go, I don't know what to do, and I go, just open Google and click search something. I don't know. I don't know. So they like Facebook because it's telling them what to think, rather than I'm interested in a group about politics. Okay, I'm going to look up politics in Australia group. Oh, there's like-minded people. Cool, I'll join that group. Oh, look at these discussions. That's how you'd use the tool properly. But what mostly people do, I like George, I like Meena. Oh, look at George's, that's a cute shirt, and the cat video. And then I get a post about left wing or right wing. Then I get a post about Pepsi or Coke. And then that's how the influence occurs. So rather than us affecting the system is still doing what it always does and affects us. So the problem with mass surveillance, sort of going back to that issue, is that the controls on it, yes, it would be great. I mean, the reality is we could stop all domestic violence if we could put a police officer in every house. We'd stop domestic violence completely. But do you really want a police officer in your house all the time? Again, we could stop pedophilia if we mounted GoPros that live streamed to the police on every male in the country, because males constitute about 99.9% of all pedophiles. So we can stop pedophilia straight away. But again, is that a cost you're willing to bear?
It's not just that; it's the impact on the law-abiding person, the person that's not doing anything.
And there are things that we do that we're not necessarily proud of. The things that we might be embarrassed about. But that's what it means to be a citizen, a private citizen. And the reality is, and if we're just being honest, governments love to know everything about everyone, hate that anyone knows even anything about them. I'm always astounded about the ability of governments to say, we need to know, and then we as the citizens say, well, can I just know this one thing? No, it's no good for you. You don't need to know. So I distrust governments just by their very nature.
Well,
and
it's
their
like
behaviour.
that guy that came out and said we managed in America to get Obamacare through because of the
because we lied.
Yeah, because we lied and they're stupid.
Actually, I saw that interview. And
Is it
you
Gruber,
posted
I think
it.
he was.
He
was one of the persons whose job it was to sell
to
it.
put it out.
And he basically said we lied. And
we
they're
called it a
stupid.
mandate rather than a tax.
Tax. That's it.
And that wow.
Mass surveillance. My view is, if everyone were to read George Orwell's 1984,
I'm actually reading at the moment A Brave New World, and it's very...
Aldous Huxley. Just read 84. Read 1984.
I loved it.
And then if you are comfortable with that world, then advocate.